Coach, it's been good, man. It's a vibe down here. It's not like a popular area, but been coming here since like the late '90s. Not for a lot, but like a little trip here, a little trip there. A couple years ago, I kind of augured in down here for like a whole season, and it was what I needed and what I wanted in regards to like a wintertime destination. Like a lot of people go to Red Rocks, Joshua Tree, maybe even down into Mexico and stuff. But yeah, it's good here. Climbing keeps you honest.
Is it, I was asking Molly, is it like staunched in like the old school ethics, just like the McDowells and Granite Peak or Granite Mountain, I believe, Granite Peak?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Arizona really lives up to its reputation in regards to keeping the grades honest. I don't even know where the hell they got their ideas of grades, but yeah, we're steadily 5'8" in it, 5'9" in it. If I get into double digits, I get scared out here. It's crazy. There's some Dave Baker routes down here, and dude, he was harder than a fucking coffin nail. Some of his routes are just amazing, and when they do check in at 5'10", you got to pack a lunch. Like I did this thing half-ass at the end of last season, and I'm not saying I was svelte, but I was in good shape, and it was 5'10", and it took everything I had to get to the top of it in regards to like face climbing, crack climbing, endurance. And he put it up in like the 60s with like bongs, dressed up like ready to chop wood as opposed to climb a rock. Yeah, pretty amazing. And the 5'8" down here, I just don't even know where to begin with them. Like, yeah, the grids
Have
down here.
the gentleman you just spoke about, what was his name again?
Dave Baker?
Dave Baker. And he's passed since, correct?
Yes, I believe he has.
Okay. Have you ever come in contact with anybody like Dave Baker, like someone like that that's just prolific, and it's like someone gets on the route and they're just like, who the fuck was this? Like, have you had a chance to speak to somebody like that?
Yeah, so Scott Ayers is very prolific down here with putting up roots since like the 70s. And I mean, it's super fun to like hear people's opinion on him and then to like actually meet the dude and you're like, "Oh, well shit, you're just a climber's climber." And I could be wrong, but I believe he's in his 60s and he just goes. Like he's the nicest guy. And some of his roots that are down here from like the 80s, oh my god. And then in the 90s, you kind of are like, okay, this is, I guess, what Scott was going through. And then now in like the 2000s, his roots are like bolted and safe and realistic. He's came back and rebolt some of his old test pieces, and people are like, you can't do that, but
You're
they're
like, dude,
his
it's my
roots to
route.
rebolt. So,
Yeah, totally.
but yeah, he's got the heart and the drive like I've never seen. Like he's running down, fixing the trail after a day of putting up roots all day long with other old school hard guys are up here hanging out with him, like John Fowler and Jack Tackle are just like sitting up there at the crag with them, and you're like, oh my god. Yeah.
Wow.
And
That's
they're all
cool.
still crushers too at their age, and I'm not sure how old John is, but I know Jack's up there. So
I mean, that's one of the cool things about climbing, right? It's like, as long as you don't die or you don't like really injure yourself, you can do it pretty much your entire life because it's a pretty low impact sport if you do it right.
for sure, I'm always like, it's not one of those gravity assisted sports like like downhill skiing or snowboarding or mountain biking. Like you get that in your head and you start going too quick, shit happens fast.
For sure it does. In regards to these kind of this older generation of climbers, you almost had mentioned something specific, so like, how like with rock and roll music or songwriting in general, poetry, you kind of have like a lot of the times people's expressions are through sorrow or like things that people are going through, like, and it comes out in the expression of music, right? It almost kind of seemed like you alluded to that same thing translating into people expressing in climbing. Do you find that as a parallel?
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's interesting to see. I mean, if you haven't passed away, unfortunately, some of these first ascensionist routes really tell a story in regards to what they were doing when they were not a kid, but in their 20s, and then seeing their roots progress, degress, to the point where they're, in their 60s, just doing it to still have that same passion and fun. And yeah, it's kind of interesting to see where the roots will take you in regards to developing. I mean, everyone has a journey with their own climbing, but yeah, in regards to developing roots, it's kind of, there's big tells. You're like, oh, so and so must have been on it that year.
On it, just like in shape, focus, like he's really,
For
at peak
sure.
shape.
Like,
Yeah.
everything must have hit the right, you know. You sometimes it's like that. You find all the good stone one year. You got a good partner that season.
Mm.
Yeah.
What do you think has changed in terms of the dynamics between, first ascensionists back in the day, back in the 70s versus now?
God, I don't know. The gear's come a long way. So, people even nowadays developing stuff think they're hanging it out there, but they're really not in comparison to what the old schoolers had to deal with, like in regards to gear and everything. And I don't know, maybe it's just, you lose enough friends, you have enough people get hurt, you look back at it and you're not one of those people. You're like, man, maybe I will fix these routes and maybe I will make it more accessible to the people. And I mean, I've found that, and not in my older age of developing routes, but kind of letting some stuff just go and being like, oh, it's not worth dodging around that block now. Like it's been there. I've looked at it for years, but that thing can just probably let it be. But I yeah, I'm not quite sure what the mindset of some of these old schooler guys were, what they were thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like there's no one even climbing like that anymore. It's like it's probably related to the safety in the gear that we have, but yeah, some of the times I think about people climbing with like knotted ropes and just simple hexes on entire crack climbs. I'm just like, these guys were on another level. It's really gnarly.
Yeah, on a complete another level. I mean, when you run out of cams and you have to like start putting in passive gear, you're like, oh man,
Yeah,
I'm
what am
so
I doing here?
trad, and it's like that's
Yeah,
all there was before. And
yeah,
yeah, the widgets have come a long way and made the game super fun and super accessible. And I'm not like quite old enough to not remember cams, like I started climbing like the late 90s and they were pretty accessible. There was a lot of cams on the market. There was like BD didn't have it cornered. So there was a bunch of interesting companies that all had their take on it. So it made it a lot safer than what it was before. So I think that's a big part of it.
totally. Well, I mean, I think, on this topic of, developing routes, you are a bit of a pioneer and kind of a developer yourself, especially in, the creek area. And I'm really interested in kind of diving into your story. So where does your story begin, Devin? Like, what was your childhood like, and how did it lead to climbing?
God, I'd say like the first taste of climbing I ever got was Devil's Lake, Wisconsin. As like a young kid, like maybe like 7 or 8, going out with like a youth group or whatever, and them tying like swami belts on us and throwing the ropes down off the cliff and starting to top rope there. And it was pretty interesting. I mean, I was young. You kind of don't remember a lot of stuff like that, but I moved to Southern California in like the mid 80s. And, like many kids, I went to like the YMCA and they had a opportunity for kids to go out to Joshua Tree. And I was like, whoa, I'm going to go do the rock climbing because I've done it before. I know how that goes. And yeah, went out to Joshua Tree with like a group of like YMCA dudes who were climbers, like just load the kids up, take them out. Southern California in the 80s, it was a different world. Um, and yeah, I knew how to tie a swami belt. Like I was pretty stoked on that. And like the older dudes who I was looking up to, who knew how to climb and set the ropes, were like, "Oh, check out Devin. Let him check your swami belt." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know what I'm doing." So it kind of gave me like a boost of I kind of know what was going on. And yeah, so I kind of fell in love with it, being propped up, by peers or whatever. And yeah, so that was how I like got into like liking rock climbing, and then moved to Durango, Colorado in like early 90s, mid 90s, and that was it. Like everybody rock climbs in Durango. And yeah, bouldered a bit, got a harness, went down that whole trail of finding partners, finding people who wanted to get out and do stuff. And yeah. And if you live in Durango, Indian Creek is like right there. It's like 2 hours away, something like that. So eventually people were like, dude, you got to go to Indian Creek. And yeah,
Here you are.
here I am. Yeah.
What were your parents adventurous? Like what was that kind of like upbringing
Um,
like?
yeah, totally. Growing up, my parents took me hiking, camping. Every chance to get out and do stuff was like a thing. And yeah, it was cool growing up. My mom's a full-blooded native and my dad's an Irishman, so I kind of had a cool dichotomy of growing up and being able to do interesting, cool shit on every scale and every level. Yeah.
Yeah. Any brothers and sisters?
I got an older brother and a sister who's like 2 years older.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys close?
Yeah, it's somewhat. Me and my sister stay in touch. I mean, as much as you can with like older siblings. I'm like the baby of the family, so
How much is the age difference?
I think 2 years with my sister and my brother like 10.
Ah, that's a long time. Yeah, my
Yeah,
youngest brother is 9 years younger than me. It's definitely like a generational gap.
totally.
Yeah.
But like growing up with an older brother was always cool because whatever your older brother did or was into, like you kind of were like, oh, that's what's cool. But
Yeah.
come to the later on in life, you're like, dude, my older brother was whack. No.
Oh man.
Yeah,
What? So what? Uh-huh.
I was
Go
like
ahead.
13 or 14 before I found out that Kiss wasn't cool. I was like, yo,
You're like, wait a second.
this isn't heavy metal at all.
How old were you when you were doing the Joshua Tree Clinic? What age were you?
I want to say like 12, 13.
12. Okay, so you got the bug young. And
Yeah.
like what was that, we all I guess I'm generalizing here, but I would imagine we all have kind of this like moment in our life where we're just like it clicks, right? We're just like, what the fuck? Like this sport is calling to me. I cannot believe I didn't know that this existed, at least for me and people who find the sport later in their life in their 20s. They're just like, why have I waited so long? Like seems like you were brushed with that pretty early. Like was there a specific moment, maybe even a little bit later, where it finally set in? You're like, this is a huge passion of mine.
So moving from Southern California to Durango, Colorado in like the early 90s was like heavy metal. I was like, what, dude? Like now there's no mall here. It's a rural community. Like I couldn't believe it. And I knew there was rock climbing there because that was one of the things your parents sell you on. They're like, oh, you love the rock climbing. There's a rock climbing there. And I was standing in the Animas Valley, which is, if you've ever been to Durango, it's beautiful. Like a river cuts through it. It's pretty sweet. And on the north end of town, you can like see this huge glacier carved valley. And there's a huge chunk of stone up on the right side called East Animas. And it's just like a beautiful plug of stone. I don't know, it's like 300 feet tall or something. And I saw like a red X up on the wall, and I was like, whoa, someone painted a red X up there. And my friend was like, no, that's a rock climbing area. That's a rock climber. I was like, shit, get out of here. No way. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, I'll do whatever it takes to get up to that spot and stand there and be that red X, And yeah, it didn't take long to go up to that area and look up and be like, oh, wow, I'm going to have to pack a lunch before I'll be able to get that high on the wall. But this is cool.
In terms of your progression through the sport, like did you follow like a boulder sport trad climbing trajectory, or did you just jump into trad climbing? What was mentorship like for you as you progressed into the sport?
I met my friend, Chris Schulte. He's a prolific boulderer. Um, Early on in my early teens, like 14, 15, and he was walking up in Sailing Hawks, which is a great bouldering area outside of Durango. And yeah, he was out bouldering. I was like, well, I got some shoes. I can do the bouldering. And yeah, I just heard of all the stories and the places to go and the things to do. And like you looked up on the wall above the boulders, and he's like, there's roots all up there. You just need like a rope, a harness, some quick draws. And I was like, well, we get our hands on those. Let's go do this. And yeah, slowly from there, just started sport climbing and bouldering a lot. And then I always had ambitions to go other places and climb like big rocks and do things like that. And I figured you need trad gear. You can't sport clip your way up El Cap. So I was like, I'm going to have to learn how to place these cams and these nuts and get that whole bag of tricks going.
Was that something that was taught to you, or did you kind of like get a crash course and then like basically instruct yourself through experience?
Um, Kind of instruct myself through experience to a degree, but you always learn from everybody around you, especially in any climbing community. There's always people who are there willing to show you a thing or two, or they see you buying gear at the climbing store and they're like, where are you going with all those cams? And you're like, I fucking, you know.
To
So
the
yeah,
desert. Yeah.
totally. And in Durango, there's no shortage of people who are going to climb, who are climbers. And yeah, it's kind of a cool little crossroads in southern Colorado.
What did your kind of like career progression look like as a adolescent, human, and kind of getting into your teens and the thought of college? Like, what was that aspect of your life?
Yeah, like I worked, like I went to high school and everything, and you go through the high school stuff. And then my father was a carpet layer, and I was like, well, this is a great way to make money. So I started the family trade, started laying carpet, and it kept me fit. It kept my wallet full. I had a kid at 21, um, which is kind of young in life, but life happens. And yeah, just was a working man for years and years, raising a kid, laying carpet, climbing as much as I could every day, getting out doing things as much as a single parent with a job can.
Now, a single father, that I think that's I'd say counter culture in the way that you would normally hear, right? It's usually the single mother, the story of the single
Oh,
mother.
for
Like,
sure, for sure.
I don't know how far you want to get into it, but like, what was that like as a single father?
I mean, I don't know. It's tough to be like a parent, but a young parent is like, oh man, it rocked my face. I was like, I don't know, the summer of '99, I found out I was going to be a dad, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm not even ready for this. Um, like MTV generation, dude. I watched hella Teen Mom on TV and was like, dude, that'll never be me. Look at these poor people, and I was like, holy shit, like I'm that person. But it was like I said, life happens, and I wasn't ready for it, but no one ever is. And yeah, I rolled with it. I had a good job, thankfully. I had a great community around me to help me raise my son, and great dad and mom, grandparents. They're like,
Yeah, the support of your family, I would imagine, is just like super crucial.
totally.
Yeah. What's your kid's name?
Devin, he's a
It's Devin
junior.
Jr.
Totally.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. What's he up to these days?
Shit, he lived in Tacoma he moved out when he was like late 17, like moved to California, lived there for a couple years, then moved up to Tacoma and was in Tacoma for, I don't know, the past couple years. And then just recently moved back to Durango like this past summer, which is nice because it's good to be able to see him. Although I'm out traveling and climbing full time, I do get back home to like hang out with my pops and do hometown stuff. So that's kind
That's
of
cool,
cool.
man. Nice, dude. Well, I commend you. I think that there's, again, the traditional narrative is the single mother and the distant removed father. So, I personally don't have any kids, but I could for sure, through, just anecdotal experience through people that I know, understand how hard it is. And I commend you for, sticking with it and being a dad and doing the work, man. I think that the world's a better place for it.
Oh yeah, and like the one thing about having a young son, like he was my best climbing partner for years, and until he met girls, he was like my best belay partner. He'd never say no going out to the creek on the weekend. He was excited for it, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I think that's another thing too. Like a father always, I would imagine, and a climbing father is like really psyched about having their kid be, interested in climbing as well. How did you navigate, the difference between I want this for you versus I want you to want this yourself? What was that like?
Yeah, he was kind of on board right away. He was pretty stoked on it. He knew what I was doing all throughout his younger years, and then yeah, once you get a kid a harness for Christmas and a pair of shoes, the
Yeah,
shiny harness and cool shoes still look like cool shoes. So
yeah.
yeah, he was stoked on it, and yeah, it was our jam. We climbed everywhere. It was kind of fun.
That's cool, man. That's probably a really cool formative experience for the both of you. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Now, in terms of your progression as a climber yourself, um, like we always, as we start, it's just like all absorbing. It's I would say it's a hobby. Did you ever consider going the pro route? Did you get sponsors? Like, what was kind of your dabbling in terms of kind of shifting most of your focus into the world of climbing?
So, oh man, I really just loved climbing for climbing forever. And the creek just really hung on me, and I've been out there since I was like in my teens, my late teens, climbing as much as I could, and yeah, started developing roots and just fell in love with it. Never even thought that I'd be a prolific first ascensionist out there. I mean, you saw all the names on the plaques and you're like, wow, these guys must be like 8 feet tall and legend. How did they do all this stuff? And yeah, slowly doing it myself, I found that like that's the kind of climbing I want to do. Like I love splitter climbing in Indian Creek, but like putting up my own routes was really fun. And I don't know, it was one of those things where I got an email and I used my name and for a mountain project, and my son also had the same name. So I was just like, well, let me use your email because it's Devin Fin and we're the same person. So I would do my little post a couple of my routes on mountain project, make a snarky comment here and there. And he was like, Dad, people are like messaging you all the time about your roots and this and that. Like, you should maybe set up a social media account and like tell people what you're doing. And I was like, it's for like young kids. What's your dad gonna do with a social media account? And yeah, I set up an Instagram in like 2015, and I just climbed to climb. I never thought it would be a thing. And yeah, people apparently really loved the crack climbs down in Indian Creek that I'd put up. And yeah, my Instagram kind of blew up rather quickly, which, you know, to at the time I was in my late 30s, I was like, this is for like kids. I can't believe people are like reaching out to me and wanting to do cool things and find out about my roots. So yeah, from just being like a climber in the creek to like companies reaching out, like wanting to give you your gear, you support their gear. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
So I want to unpack two things. First, let's talk about the first ascensionist passion. I think that I wouldn't say it's as mainstream these days to like immediately kind of go in that direction of like being inspired to be first ascensionist. Just I would say it's mostly because the access is so amazing. There's like so many options to choose from, right? Like you could travel around the United States and climb classics and never have to worry about repeating a route. There's just so many climbs out there that have already been established. What about first ascensionist has called you?
God, I don't know. I thought the history of the cracks down in Indian Creek was so unique. I had climbed other places, but these cracks had little plaques at the bottom of them that had like a name on it and said the route, the length, who did it. So it was very interesting, and I was like, man, maybe one day I could have one of those little plaques of my own. And as I continued to just fall in love with the creek, I was like, wow, really, what would that take? And it didn't take much besides picking up like a hammer and a drill and asking questions. And the community was great to share with me. And a couple of people showed me how to do it and what to use. And that was it. It just, yeah, I fell into wanting to put up my own roots and have my own vision of what I thought was cool, because a lot of people think like just regular hand cracks and finger cracks and like obviously the dead splitter lines, but there's a lot of lines in between the lines out there in the desert, if you will, and not a lot of them have been climbed.
You had mentioned in one of your posts that you have a respect for the desert pioneers. And it seems like you're alluding to these people who were the first ascensionists before you. What is the lore of Indian Creek? What's the history there? I personally have never heard this. What's the backstory to the area?
I mean, it's obviously one of the most splitter sandstone venues on the planet. Like those cracks go forever and they require a lot of endurance and a lot of the same cam to do them forever. So they were kind of guarded for years by the fact that you couldn't simply climb these things, because to protect them safely, you would need so many cams. Earl Wiggins came along and like, God, I'm botching this one, in the 70s, put up Supercrack, which is like a long, Supercrack.
Oh yeah.
And he did it with hexes, and people couldn't believe that you could just run up something like that and protect it, because of the area wasn't prolific at the time. There was only a couple lines up there that had been done. I believe Jimmy Dunn put up the Y crack in like the early mid 70s or something, and it had just enough little breaks and kinks in it to where he could wedge a hex in or two or pound in a pin. And the place really just became synonymous with having to have the camming devices to climb these long enduro splitters forever. And a lot of those old timers, they didn't have the cams, or they had like a handful of them, or they were sharing cams or something like that, and pool them together to put up some of these masterpieces that are out there. Like Steve Hong put up so many good routes out there that are just like so 5-star, and you look at them today and it calls for like an armload of cams that you'll never have. You'll have to borrow the 16.75s it takes to do tricks for kids or whatever these routes are. And he pounded those things out with like a minimal rack of friends and threw little hexes in. And so the endurance of doing those long routes and figuring it out and then putting those things up like far before like good equipment and tons of cams and anything like that was just seems so hard and visionary to me.
How do you see the balance between artistic expression as a climber compared to like artistic expression as an artist, right? Because our medium is the rock, it's the earth, right? It almost is like the canvas is already there. The artwork is already done. So what do you see as the climber's role in artistic expression when it comes to climbing?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, some of these things, some people see like a blank face and like the little crimps on it, and they're like, oh, the line goes through there and up over here, and I put the bolts here. Like that, to me, I can barely wrap my head around it, like the vision that it takes to do some of these face climbs, because like the splitters are like drawn there. It's like, if you have what it takes to climb the thing to the end, that's where it goes, and it's just a matter of selecting the size that'll fit you, because like some of these plumb lines that are like pure golds all the way to the top, it's like, dude, that thing will select anybody, but some of these climbs that are like number 6s and humongous widgets that, like those 7s and 8s, you got to squirm your body in and pop out and dodge around a rock or anything. Yeah, some of those are very artistic routes, and I don't know, painting the picture in those is definitely a select kind of beauty, because some of the things I put up out there, you're like, oh man, that what a great, you don't know if anyone will ever climb them. You're just like, I see it. It's beautiful. I love it. And then some of the things you put like all your heart into and no one ever climbs them. And then things you put up as like a little dumpy warm up, people love. And they're like, oh my God, that thing's 5-star. I can't believe how amazing it is. You're like, oh, dude.
Do you find value in having other people repeat your routes?
Um, for the longest time, I kind of was like, no one will ever repeat these things. Like, very selfish endeavor that First Ascension is like putting up your own route. You're like, it's my route. I did this. Um, and I never thought anyone would climb them in a million years. And then I had like, people come up to me and be like, whoa, I climbed so and so, and it was a very fun climb, or this and this. And it was my first climb in the creek, and it was a blast. I love that. Like, everybody who puts up routes has some kind of weird feeling when someone comes up and tells them their route was cool or whatever. And yeah, it's kind of neat over the years to find that people do love on some of those routes that you thought no one would ever get on,
But it's not necessarily like a motivating factor for putting them up in the first place.
Maybe to a degree. I like Carl Kelly started working on that book, the Creek Freak book, and I was like, oh man, I better get some of these routes that I've been looking at that I was maybe scared off of or what had ever done, so I can get them in the book. And yeah, that was a motivating factor for like a couple months there. I put up some real nail biters that might have just been better to go the way of the dinosaur, but they found their way into the analogs of the world because I was like maybe trying to pin a cool sheriff's badge on my shoulder. I'm not quite sure. But they turned out cool and they made the book, so
hell yeah.
Who knows?
So I mean, on this topic of kind of sharing routes, like, do you have like a black book of like all the routes you've done, and have you like documented all of your first ascents in the creek?
Oddly enough, when I first started putting up routes, someone was like, hey, you should write every single one of those down that you do. You might enjoy looking at it in the future. And I was like, oh, cool. So I had like the 50 select climbs of Indian Creek. It was like a little thin paper thing that you could get a hold of before all the guidebooks came out. And I kind of started putting in like my own little notes inside there, and that book turned into another book, turned into like a really nice leather thing that I got. And yeah, I've kind of written everything down and documented it all, and helping Carl Kelly with that Creek Freak book in like 2017, 18. It really helped me realize that, I kind of I'd put a lot of work in down there, and helped me fill in what I had forgotten, because you spend a decade or two down there, you forget some stuff and remember others. And so I kind of have kept good track of it.
I read somewhere that you have 665 established routes in Indian Creek. Is that the current number?
That is the current number. I'm like, and I was going hard this past 2 seasons because we have like a whole stopping of the bolting down there issue, like everywhere in any climbing area in the world. But for decades, I really haven't had to worry about putting up first ascents. But recently, it's come to be that they're gonna have some forms of laws and stuff and this and that in regards to who can put up stuff where and what it can be done. I mean, sounds like a bunch of laws and books and reading.
How did that all develop? I think from what I read, it was kind of like, oh, it might ban, but then just like, I think it recently just passed where they're not banning bolts in wilderness areas. That was like a recent development, right? Now that was also affecting Bears Ears and the Indian Creek area.
I mean, it reads very interesting. I mean, there's huge like page after page that you'll have to file down in regards to what you can do, what you can't do. Um and I know the recent bolting, like saving it in wilderness, I don't think it has anything to do with Indian Creek. I'm pretty sure they just passed something through. And I mean, I'm all for, do what they want to do. But it is kind of a shame that they're going to be stopping the bolting because there's plenty of climbs down there to keep on putting up. And
So is
it's
that actually a thing? Are they banning bolting in Indian Creek?
I think they said there's going to have to be like a selection process, and then you're going to have to, like, I don't know, show it on paper and then have a bunch of people walk out there and look at it. And like, I mean, yeah,
Well, I mean that just brings in the question of like who the hell is enforcing it, and like are people like going up and chopping bolts that haven't been approved by this group of people?
I mean, the whole Indian Creek scene down there is pretty damn interesting. Like, it's it's a lot of area to police. And yeah, the only user group down there that really uses Indian Creek like on the walls are the climbers, like, so some of the, and I'm sure, like, everything impacts everything, but the amount of damage the climbers do down there in regards to like walking up trails that have been established for years and clipping bolts that are up on the wall that are only anchor bolts. No one's grid bolting any sport climbs down there. Like, and, for years and years, people camouflage their bolts. People who believe in camouflaging their bolts. I don't know, but the impact's there, and it's like a hot button issue, and the crazy times we live in, who knows what's going to happen. Yeah, I don't know. I know that Indian Creek's really not going anywhere, just short of them putting a gate at like the top of 211. Like, people are going to be down there climbing, doing their thing. And yeah, everyone's like, well, how are they going to stop you from bolting? And it's like, well, I've only put myself on Front Street for the past couple years, being like, look at me swing my hammer.
Yeah. I mean, you'd probably have to pull the plug on that. But it seems ridiculous, though. They would have to like literally, basically, essentially ban any new routes in the area from ever being developed legally. It's like, what's the real point of that?
Yeah, I don't know how they could do it or how they could even keep track of it, because it's such a vast area. And I mean, it's an international climbing area, so people come down from all over the world. And if they know they could hear stories of people putting up routes. All the gear stores sell bolts and drills and hammers, and they could follow their nose like Toucan Sam and find a crack that has no anchors on it pretty easily. But I've been doing it for decades.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how it's all going to pan out. It should be interesting, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine the entire general community of Indian Creek is against the ban of bolting, I would imagine, right?
It's so weird because, sure, I think some people definitely are up in arms about it, but there's not that many developers down there. And there's even fewer people who like spend a lot of time down there doing it 24/7. There's like a small groups. It's real clicky down there. So there's a couple other cliques that are doing first ascents and this and that. But I mean, who knows? They're not going to make a big enough splash in the pond of people bitching for the BLM to be like, oh, we feel bad. Because there's thousands of routes down there. And there's even more that are like undocumented, that like if you go walking up the weird canyons, you're like, oh my God, what's that? Oh, there's anchors up there. Like, they would have to like document everyone. I mean, I don't know. It seems crazy to me, but
yeah. What about you? What about your first ascents and your, like, how much of the 665 are public knowledge? I send professional recording equipment to every single guest to ensure top tier video and audio quality. And those costs add up. Right now, this podcast is also ad-free, and I would love to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help cover shipping costs and keep this podcast ad-free, please consider joining our Patreon. With as little as $3 a month, you can help support the show. You can find the link in the description below or go to patreon.com/theclimbingmajoritypodcast. That's patreon.com/theclimbingmajoritypodcast.
God, I don't know. I know that in the guidebook, quite a few of them are public knowledge, but
Quite a few, like what, 10%, 80%,
yeah, maybe something like that. I don't know.
like 80%,
Oh,
or
maybe
10,
half of them.
half of them. Okay, yeah,
Maybe
because
half.
I was like, the only resource I really have to research you is your Instagram, and so I'm just like, I spent most of the day like scrolling through and just like kind of getting a taste for, you know, your life via Instagram. And a lot of the cracks I was seeing, obviously, I'm just like, okay, like let me add this to my to-do list. And oh, not on mountain project. Oh, not on mountain project. You know, like, oh, can't find it on mountain project. So like, would you say the best way to find the routes that you're putting out is that guidebook that you published in 2017? That's like probably the best resource to find your routes.
God, probably no. I helped out a lot with Carl Kelly's book, but there was just a lot of stuff that just didn't make it in there because, you know, he was going on like filling that whole book up with all the lore, and First Ascensionists is like wrangling cats. I mean, no one's going to tell you the same story. And they're like,
Yeah.
some of the old timers, like, I did that. And some of the new climbers are like, well, we already did that. And so that book got a lot of my roots in there. But since 2018, I've really just been putting them on the Instagram and then putting a plaque at the base and then making my anchors the unique anchors that they are. Kind of leave a better footprint than anything digital I could ever do. Or, I mean, having them in print is always good. But a lot of those routes out there are just literally sitting in the sand with a plaque at the bottom that says DF.
Wow.
And some shiny anchors up top because I quit camouflaging my anchors years ago. An old schooler was like, you know, your climbs will grow lower anchors if you camouflage them too good. And I was like, what do you mean? And he showed me a couple of his climbs that had in fact grown lower anchors because people couldn't see his higher up anchors.
Oh, wow.
So and he's like, and they brought my climb down to their chicken shit level. And I'm like,
Okay.
oh man, maybe I won't camouflage them. And then, once or twice in my years of doing FAs, I'm like, my plaque's gone and this thing has a new name. I did this. And you can find your plaque laying in the dirt somewhere and you step back a little bit further and you're like, I can see my anchors. And
wow.
yeah. So I think like early 2000s, I quit camouflaging my bolts. And so, yeah, they're extra shiny and there's some plaques at the bottom that kind of tell you where they are, or, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, honestly. You kind of leave it up to the spirit of adventure, right? If someone wants to go chase, you know, Devin's first ascents, they got to go on a little bit of an exploring mission.
For sure. It's almost like a Easter egg hunt of wasted years of my life. No. But yeah, they're all out there. And, you know, some of them, I haven't had any of my roots fall off or fall down or anything. I mean, I have gone up to things that I was like, wow, this looks like a good time. And then find a plaque that I had already
done it.
I had already been there. But
wow,
I think that just happens with doing all these cracks so many different times. And I mean, that's a unique story once or twice, but it does happen.
How many years have you been building routes in Indian Creek?
I'd say about 30 years. I put my first ascent up down there in like 97.
Wow.
96, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It is. I mean,
it's a long time.
Yeah. I climbed for a couple years before I got that bug, but yeah, it was, I don't know what I would have done with my life. I don't know. I've seen a lot of my friends do other things and whatnot, but that Indian Creek just it called me, and I've never really looked back. I've just wanted to climb as many of those splitters down there as I can. And like I said, never in a million years, Cal, did I think I'd be as prolific as I was. It wasn't until that Instagram and people were like, whoa, you're doing cool shit. And I was like, Maybe
Maybe
I
I am.
am.
Yeah, so on that topic of Instagram, kind of circling back to kind of where we left the tangent there. You had mentioned that brands started reaching out to you and stuff. Like, I think in our meet and greet, you mentioned that you were sponsored for a little bit. Was that correct?
Yeah, totally. I had
Yeah, what was that like?
it was interesting. It was one of those things where I ended up teaming up with like a very popular and in vogue off with climber at the same time as myself. And it was like yeah, I had someone who I thought was like, who I looked up to in the industry reach out to me and be like, "Hey, do you want to go climb off with cracks? I'm an off with climber." And I'm like, "Wow, dude, no way does anyone want to climb off with cracks too." Um yeah, and it kind of swept me up in a whole whirlwind of going out on the road and climbing full time and climbing off with cracks and doing cool shit like that. And it was very interesting, super fun. Um, cool part of my life. I haven't really slowed down. I still do interesting, cool stuff. But yeah, for a little bit there, it was cool to like go to outdoor retailer and see all the stuff and see all the people. And yeah, it was interesting to see like the names and meet everybody you looked up to and be like, holy shit, they're a real person. But it was also kind of weird because you go to outdoor retailer and you have a badge that has your name on it right here. And like everyone can walk up to you and be like, "Hey, Devin, how's it going?" And you're like, "Hi, Dale, how's it going?" And they're like, "No, I'm not Dale. I'm borrowing his badge. It's Mitch. We met over at so-and-so climbing." And you're like, "Oh, fuck, I don't know." It's like if Instagram was a real place, um, I'd say that's what outdoor retailer was like.
Mm. And how long were you in that world?
A good 3 or 4 years.
And then what happened towards the end of it? Like, was it a personal choice to kind of exit the scene? What was that kind of transition like?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't know, the industry, if you will, can be like a weirdly toxic place in regards to the cliques you're in, who you're climbing with, who you're out there seeing with, what you're doing, what kind of photos are you getting, like who's taking your photo, like how much reach are you getting on your little Instagram? Like people fucking care. And so do sponsors and so do companies. And like you have to have like not so much a look or whatever, but there's certain things you have to do and maintain, to, I wouldn't say fit into the box, but like you can't really
Well, I mean,
deviate.
you need to be the marketable product essentially, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that the industry cherry picks who they want and whatnot. And like, it's not like, oh, you got to know who you know, but it's kind of like that,
I
like,
mean, yeah, I mean, it's a tight community. Even with this podcast and just talking to all the people that I do, it does seem like a pretty tight community.
it for sure is. And I wouldn't say by any means that it was toxic, but there are toxic elements when you get people together like that. And like I said, it became cliquey and groupy. And like, if you weren't climbing with so and so and this people, and what do you think about so and so? And it's like, dude, it's only rock climbing. And I'm a fucking old man. Like, I don't even care. Like, all this seems like high school stuff. And I did shitty in high school. So, and I mean, that was just like kind of my experience with that. And that was like a very small portion of me in the industry. But nonetheless, it's enough to make you be like, ooh, maybe just climbing and having a good time is where it's at. And like doing as much as you can for your community is like more important than, let's say, having like a good sponsorship and going all over the place to climb and pump people up and this and that. Like I love doing that, but I like doing it in my own community as opposed to trying to tell everybody how badass I am. And I climb the hardest thing that they'll never be able to do. They can check it out on my little box, but if you want to get out there and do it, like you have to dedicate your fucking life and have this and that to climb that grade. And that's fun and all. I mean, I totally support people who are into that, but the amount of self-promotion and pumping that you have to do to that to make yourself a brand and everything and make it all work and hit on all the cylinders to make it work to be a living, it's kind of anti what climbing is, like if some of the old schoolers could see what it's become. And, you know, some of them are still alive to this day. And you see like a nice, great, wrinkly picture of them on Instagram. And they got like, fucking, what, 200 followers? Like, no way does so-and-so, the legend, have that many followers. And you're like, oh, that's right, because it's not really real. Like, they did their shit and it's like on paper and everyone knows. But yeah, it's weird the way people hold value to like a number behind like a thing on a little box, you know, that like only portrays what you see through that box, you know.
For sure. Yep. And that box is completely curated and
Oh,
analyzed and just perfectly edited and made to
perfectly.
have a exact response that you're looking for.
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
like, I mean, I kind of knew that the whole time I was out rock climbing and like picking up the magazines and being like, wow, look at that photo. Look at the light. Like, so-and-so must have just been there at the right time. And no, dude, that's not the case. Like, the fucking reality of it is like you sit there on a rope freezing and they're like, can you do that move one more time, Devin? And you're like, this is what they call the crux. Like, I can barely hang on. Like, you want me to do that again? And yeah, and that was like not the norm, but like, yeah, they expect stuff and like, but it's cool. You know, you see these pictures and you're like, look at
That was
that
worth
image.
it.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
And like with the Instagram, you can catch all those great little images, put them in and dilate it on the box and put cool music to it. And like people will build you up and be like, yo, you're the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yo, like I'm down here climbing like 5'0", 5'8" in Cochise. They're like, where is that? And I'm like, it's right there on the grandma wall. Like,
Yeah.
I saw someone walk up there with, you know, like it's not that big of a
Well, I
thing.
think you've built yourself up enough over the years where I'm sure it doesn't even matter what you're climbing, someone's going to see it and be like, I want to get on that. You know, Devin's climbing it. It must be sick. It must be good. And it probably is, you know, it's probably awesome. You probably have an eye for great routes and having fun. And I think that's like, it seems like that's what you're alluding to is like you stepped away because you found yourself not happy, right? You just like,
Not happy, but like seeing it for what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like I never came into it like that. I came into it as like I'm down here doing what I love. And then like I got swept up in a night of whirlwind of it. But yo, I'm guilty of being like sensationalized and seeing what it was all about and like being able to travel and like have a budget and like fuck, I've had to worry about food, being a climber, worried about clothes and like cams. And then you don't have to worry about that. Like, yo, sky's the limits. Then you can like really curate those photos to make it look like you're harder than a coffin nail when actuality you're lounging, eating good food, like with your clean clothes, like cool story. But yeah, that's kind of not really, doesn't really, to me, it's not climbing, you know? Don't get me wrong. The industry thrives on that, you know, and I love it. Like it's super cool. Don't get me wrong. I love it when a company likes my thing or
it
reaches
just,
out.
or does lifestyle wasn't sustainable for you or like
Um,
what was the catalyst for the pivot between kind of like existing in that world and finding a happy medium and kind of like finding a dance there versus just like putting your nose down, getting to the grindstone and committing to a life of like finding your own way to live day to day climbing?
maybe I'm gonna have to honestly say my peers and my people, that were my real friends throughout like everything, you know. They were just like, yo, remember when you would just be out there having a good old time? And I'm like, shit, I'm a sellout. Like, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
like on that weird level to where like you're out doing the fun shit. You're like, to call me a sellout. I'm getting paid and having a good time. Um, and not like that it made me pivot a bunch, but like you have to like, you go through stuff like that with it being clicky and climbing with these people and climbing with that people. And you realize like, yeah, man, everyone's just a climber. And yeah, I saw maybe not losing friends, but like seeing friends avoid me because of who I was climbing with and what I was doing. And then like I stepped back and I'm like, oh Jesus, I wasn't like the best friend I could have been. But I mean, whatever, receipts. I don't know.
Nice, man. I watched a film, I believe it was shot by Friction Labs.
Yeah.
And I want to dissect a couple things that you had mentioned there in some of your monologues. Um, you had said like climbing full time, doing what I do every day, it never loses its fun or its appeal. Um, how like I understand the allure of climbing. I'm a climber. I It's a huge passion of mine. I've built a climbing podcast around the sport. I think about it all the time. But I've definitely gotten to a place in my life where it became climbing, like the physical act of climbing became so like much of a focus for me that I like neglected. I felt like I was neglecting other areas in my life. And it led to kind of like unhappiness. So how have you found a source of passion and happiness in climbing so fulfilling that it has just kind of like been there for you this entire time?
God, I really don't know. Um, I think some people will take like their whole life to figure out what they're meant to do and how shit should work for them and what makes them happy. And this go around in this life, I was lucky enough to find rock climbing. Um, and it was like the thing that I needed. I didn't know I needed it. I didn't know it was going to fulfill every ounce and every being of my fiber doing it every day. Like I can't like oh my God, like even on my rest days, I'm pacing in camp. And Molly's like, dude, just go for a walk. And I'm like, a walk is not gonna do it, you know? And yeah, I love rock climbing to like a fault. Just being out there, moving around, like just the struggles of it all. Like I live outside full time. Like, it's awesome to like make it work. Like it's truly fun to just be out existing and then rock climbing be the catalyst because I knew if I have a house that I have to pay rent on, I couldn't be out rock climbing every day. Um, I know if I have like other things like a job and all this stuff, I couldn't be out rock climbing every day. So yeah, I do whatever I have to do to like make enough money to sustain my rock climbing outside full time. And I don't know why I've never lost a passion. I've never even had a time where I was like, wow, I don't think I think I went on vacation to Florida once and I freaked out. There was nothing to climb. Yeah, did
Yeah.
some like kayaking and stuff and it was super cool. But like driving by the overpasses, I was like, oh, there goes a splitter. I saw it underneath that bridge. I don't know what it is. Yeah,
Well,
some
that's cool,
people
man.
are,
I think that's really, beautifully said. I think that you are correct. I think a lot of people lack purpose. I think that's like a huge epidemic in societies. People don't really know what they are here to do. And I think it's beautiful that you found that. It's easy to say, like, look, you've dedicated your entire life to climbing, but I feel like that statement might like wash out other aspects of your existence. And maybe I'm wrong. But like other than climbing, you can't climb every second of every day. Like, what are some other areas of your life that you find this source of fulfillment in?
God, oh man. As far as like anything in my life goes, I just honestly try to rock climb. Like I don't have any other passions. I don't like paint on the side. I'm not like good at other things. I mean, maybe I am good at other things. I don't know. But I really don't really have other things that and I'm not like missing anything where I'm like, "Oh, that's right, water polo." Like, no, I literally get enough fulfillment out of climbing. And maybe it's like the rat race involved in trying to figure out how to rock climb full time that really fills my cup day to day. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like that's a question I wasn't ready to answer. I was like, oh man, I should have my paintings in the background and be like, here's what I do.
Well,
Like,
no, I mean, I think honestly, you just answered it. It's like, you it's supporting the passion to climb every day, and that is a skill set in its own. And what does that look like? Like what do you do on a day-to-day basis to support yourself? Because I think there's a large allure to kind of living your lifestyle and like living in the van and climbing every day. I think every climber goes through this stage where that's like what they want to do. And then they like, come to reality and realize that one, it's not possible, or they have other passions. And then they might like go get a job, and then they, get the whatever goal they wanted, and then they start, shopping for vans again. And they're like, well, maybe I want to go on the road and live in a van again and commit my life to climbing. So I think there's always that allure to every climber to live the life that you're living. So how do you do it? Like, how are you pulling this off?
So honestly, like I don't have a car. I haven't had a car in like 6 years. Like I found that when I started climbing full time, I didn't need a car. I had a partner who was driving around, and I was like, dude, my car is just sitting here. I'm paying insurance and everything. So I nixed the car. So that was like a huge savings. Um, got rid of my house that I lived in, which was amazing. Like I didn't have to pay any overhead. My kid moved out. So what do I need a house for? Kind of threw stuff into like my folk storage, So I was like, all right, I not paying on any storage. Once I kind of cut all my ties to like what I would call financial burdens, like if you're trying to live on the road full time and climb, um, I figured I didn't need to work a full time job, and I had enough money saved up from being an athlete or whatever. When I was climbing, I was like, dude, I'm gonna do this full time. And yeah, just kind of the seed money from selling my house and not paying rent and everything like that, and the car and everything, I was able to launch myself into maybe climbing full time. Um, and then, yeah, I've just done anything and everything I could to make it by, becoming somewhat prolific on the Instagram, paid for a little bit, they meta paid you to post your videos or whatever. And that was an awesome deal for like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years, which helped me. It didn't give me a lot of money, but it gave me enough to get by, And then like working odd jobs and doing things here and there as a regular rock climber. And then always having like a good partner, because there's always people who are down to go climb. That's been kind of like a big help in regards to like not having a car or anything like that. Not that I couldn't afford one, but like, yeah, everyone's always going climbing, especially if you're bouncing between venues. It's like there's always room in someone's car.
And how do you see this panning out like in the next 10, 20, 30 years? Like, are you still running on savings? Like, have you found a balance to where you're able to either save or be like a net, neutral, where you're not having to see some sort of cliff or end to where you're going to have to make some sort of decision?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think about that like every season. I'm like, oh, dude, this is the season when you're going to run out of money and all the chumblers aren't going to fall in the right place and it's not going to work out for you. And I know that's no way to live, but um, yeah, it kind of seems to work out every season. I make it to the next season and keep going. I mean, in the long run, fuck, what I want to become like a guide or something, or have like Devin specialty clinics where you come out and climb with me in the desert or something like that. I mean, something like that's always an option. I think about that all the time. People are like, yo, you should run your own little clinics and do things like that. And you're so prolific out in Indian Creek. It's like a lot of people, teach crack climbing clinics and make a pretty penny out there. I see it all the time. Um, so maybe something like that. I don't know. I mean, yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I
Have
could
you ever,
always become a greeter at Walmart. That, I got good forearms. I'd be like, hi, how's it going?
yeah. Have you ever thought about selling merch on your channel?
I mean, honestly, I kind of thought about it when a couple years ago I was in Vedawu, um, climbing. It's rough. It's a rough area. And you can buy like elbow pads and like arm things so you don't get torn to shit. And my partner at the time, Jamie Busby, was like, yo, check this out. And we put our arms in some like, I put my arms in one of her pants and like chopped them off.
Yeah, I
And they
saw you
became
climbing
like,
with jean arms.
dude, skinny jeans,
Yeah.
like arm things. And I was like, yo, let me get these pants. This is a fucking amazing idea. Um, and yeah, like subsequently, like people from all over the world, like people in like Spain be like, I have your elbow pads. We made them. And I'm like, fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, maybe some sweet jean elbow merch, or I don't know. I mean, there's ways to capitalize on the industry, and I don't know. I mean, and that would like, again, like, dude, it would really eat into my full-time climbing type
Yeah,
of
that's the
deal.
thing, right? It's like,
And I mean, what you
yeah.
gotta like have shit to mail out, and then like things, and I don't know. I make these cool belts out of webbing, because whenever I'm out in the desert, there's old webbing like hanging on the anchors, and I've tried over the years to chop all that shit down and put chain on them. And I saved the belt, or the webbing, and I put like buckles on the end of them, and like giving to my friends as like time dyed belts, because where the knot
Yeah,
is, if you
yeah.
untie it, it looks really cool. It's like got like a
Cool.
pattern in it. It looks all tie dyed, but it's like bleached by the sun. So maybe some sweet time dyed belts and like jean elbow pads in my future. Check out my channel for my merch.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think you're sitting on 197,000 followers at this point.
Yeah, dude. I mean, something like that. And
It is a
yeah,
lot.
that blows my mind. I mean,
Yeah.
because I look at, like I said, my peers, like people I really look up to in the industry. And I see that they have like less followers than me. And that doesn't mean anything, but I'm like, I must be doing something right. People are seeing what I'm doing, and I try not to deviate from it. Like, you'll never see on my Instagram me crying about spilled milk or anything, or my life problems. It's just pretty much strictly climbing and some music, and like maybe like a good message in there. Like,
Yeah.
try not to keep it negative,
Oh, and that's
because
all. I mean, I think that's like people overthink Instagram. I think it's like it's just, it's when you start investing way too much effort and way too much like soul into it where it starts to like become a leech rather than something that's beneficial for you. There's got to be like that safe distance between, your effort into Instagram and what you're expecting to get back from it.
because yeah, I mean, yeah, I've seen people like famous climbers like get really worked up over their feed's not doing good, or there's this video's trash, I'm taking it down. I'm like, well, dude, that's like a cool video. Like, it tells a story. Like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't take it down. It's interesting, and
Yeah.
just because the algorithm doesn't like it that day or something like that. Like, and I mean, yeah, when you see stuff like that, or people get on there and make some like pretty raw dog comments on your life and like what you do, you're like, oh shit, you know, dear Bill 1984, I hate your mom. Like, what do you, what are you gonna do when they like call your life's work trash and that you should
Yep.
fall to your death? You're like, whoa, should I stop bolting and try not to fall? Like, it's not real. None of that's real. Those people are just on the internet. But yeah, it's crazy that it is the place that it is, and that it even has like a foothold in climbing whatsoever. Like, I mean, I love it. Like I said, I get to show people what I'm doing. I've met more amazing people through the Instagram and my rock climbing being out there in the ether somewhere than I could maybe just be in who I am. I don't know.
I think you found a nice balance and people love it. So I just keep doing what you're doing, man.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I don't, like I said, I don't have any other interests. I don't know what I would do with my free time.
I read a comment on one of your posts that said, you're a machine. Do you ever fall? And I think I want to pose the question, do you fall? And with that question comes like, what is your view on managing risk as a trad climber in the creek?
So, I mean, yeah, I have fallen. I have been hurt. Um, but in regards to like filming and like climbing and like posting a video of myself falling. Like I don't think I would ever do that. Like um I
I
think
mean, not necessarily in like the realm of social media and your digital presence. I'm more talking about your own personal growth as a trad climber and like how you've developed your own personal risk assessment. Like what was that injury and how did it kind of was it significant enough to kind of shape your perspective on how you manage risk as a trad climber?
oh for sure.
Yeah. So what happened?
I fell and blasted my elbow like pretty bad and had to have some surgery on it. And traverses are dangerous. Like as climbers, you never want to traverse. And yeah, I slipped doing some traversy shit and like wiped out my elbow pretty bad. Didn't think I'd be able to climb ever again, and was like, oh man, that's a big mistake. I'm never gonna make that same mistake again. But it's like simple things are what get you. It wasn't a hard climb. It was a somewhat easy climb. I was traversing sideways and slipped and yeah, put my arm into the wall and busted my elbow up bad, and it put me out for like a good year for sure of not being able to climb at all, not even be able to straighten my, like they said I'd never be able to straighten my arm. Like yeah, it was a good one. Like
Do you know what happened physically to your elbow? Like which bones did you break? Was it a shatter? Like was it the joint?
it was my tibia, whatever the two big bones are in your arm, blasted out my elbow. Like
Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah,
Ooh,
and it
compound. Oof.
yeah, a compound fracture.
Yeah, that's
Dr. Kim
nasty.
Furry put me back together. Shout
That's
out Dr.
nasty.
Kim Furry.
Hey, yeah, I got one of those too.
And yeah, I wouldn't be the athlete I am today if it wasn't for, getting my arm fixed, going through all that, like working it back. Um, and yeah, I was scared, oh man, forever after that. Like even to this day, I'm scared of like falling and hitting my arm and bashing my elbow or clipping my ankle. I mean, you climb long enough, you've seen it all. Like, unfortunately, I've seen like some pretty bad accidents in all my years. And yeah, you never want to be that dude. But then when you are that dude, you're like, whoa, I don't want to climb anymore. Not an option. Like, you got to
Yeah.
get back at it.
So that's
And
actually a really common thread with everybody I talk to. And I guess it's different for person to person, but and I wonder if it's the same in other sports, like getting injured that bad. And I've yet to meet someone that has even questioned, like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do that again. Everybody's like, oh, I'm like already counting down the days until I can get back out there and like go climb again. What do you think about the sport? It draws us back.
I don't know. I think that, climbing in itself is very adrenaline based. You're pushing it, you're getting higher, you're in danger of falling. I mean, nobody will tell you like, I've been a top rope climber for 50 years. It's the best thing ever. Like you start lead climbing at some point, you get up there to get up there and you push it. And yeah, I don't know. It's something like some form of addiction to where even at like all costs, you'll go back to it and see if you can figure it out and get better at rock climbing or whatever, that ended you up there. Like I know a lot of rock climbers who've gotten hurt. Very few of them I know have gotten hurt and quit the game. Just seems to be the drive of rock climbing is just one of those weird addictions, I suppose.
What are your thoughts behind the idea of like the phrase, if you're not falling, you're not trying? Do you feel like that translates to trad climbing? Do you find that that is a common trope in your community as a climber?
I hear that a lot. I hear, if you're not falling, you're not trying. Um, I try to mitigate risk as much as I can in regards to like not fall. But I mean, I guess we all have to fall if we want to try real hard. But I like to almost get to the point dialed to where I won't even try something unless I know I can almost do it, because I hate failure. I hate not being able to do something, So there are ways you can mitigate that risk by like building yourself up to that point where you're like, dude, I'll go 20 feet above that cam, or I'll run it out. I'll dodge that rock. I'll make it around this,
Yeah.
I think
Just
it's like
because you mean you're confident in your climbing ability not to come off the wall in those specific moments, right?
totally. I mean, if you've taken the time to learn your craft and practiced hard enough and spent all the hours, it should almost just be, fluid when you do it. Of course, we all fall, we all slip and fail at some point. Um, but yeah, I don't try to practice falling at all. Like, I don't take like a victory whip. I don't try to see if my cams work. I mean,
I know, right? Yeah. So, okay, there's a fine delineation here I want to get at. So, when we climb, we have this like connection to the rock, and we know how close we are to either getting too pumped or getting to that line of like, okay, the chances of me coming off are really high now. Obviously, like random foot slips and just like randomly popping off the wall is a different story. But I feel like we get to this place where we have a choice to put a cam in and rest, or we have a choice to like you choose to fall, right? Do you in those kind of circumstances, do you ever choose to fall, or would you in that instance like put a cam in and take and rest?
oh, I have taken a good fall or two if I knew it was like clean and the piece down there was good. But man, those widgets can do the craziest things. You can like look at them wrong and they can go a little bit askew.
Yeah.
And then like you're above and you're like, I'm just gonna take this whipper. Oh dude, no way. I will feed a cam in right at my waist and clip myself to it so fast if I have that ability. Just I'm not saying because I'm old and chicken shit, but if I don't have to fall, I won't. But yeah, I'll take one for the team. I'll go flying off the wall here and there if I have to. And often if you got enough will and forethought to put in a cam and like clip yourself to it, you just clip the rope to it and keep rocking, like
Mhm.
try harder. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's just an interesting conversation to have because I mean I injured myself pretty bad choosing to take a fall. So now I'm like the advocate for like taking, just to try to balance the scales a little bit. It's like for me, it's not worth the risk of like the hubris of just like, oh, like I could try harder and go for it. It's like I'll just take and then come back when I'm stronger or whatever. Like to me, it's more about the longevity of like climbing until I'm old rather than the fear of like, oh, this person thought, or the judgment of myself on myself, be like, oh, I can't believe I took, I'm such a bitch, like, I just think it's an interesting thing to talk about, especially with somebody who has been climbing as long as you have. I think, your point of view is a lot more impactful than, one of my own. It's like, what is someone that's been climbing as long as you have and has put up as many routes as you have? Like, what is your mentality when it comes to risk? Because I think a lot of new climbers can blindly just hear that, oh, if you're not falling, you're not trying, and kind of take that a little bit too much to heart.
No, I think as climbing as long as I have, it's a day-to-day struggle to those voices where like, oh, I'm a bitch. Like, oh my God, every day. Like we were on some 5'9" day before yesterday down here and it's slabby and spooky. And like the distance between bolts can be humongous,
Yeah.
but it was like 2 body lengths and I knew it was 9 plus. And I was down in Sparkle Motion. I grabbed that draw and I was like, "You take me right there, Molly. I'm going to sit here and think about it."
Yeah.
And yeah, just because I didn't want to like maybe get above that piece and like sprain my ankle, like it's like, it's 5'9", oh, you should be able to fall on it. And I'm sure it would have been a totally fine fall and this and that, but weird stuff happens. Rock climbing is inherently dangerous. It says on all those stickers. And I truly believe in that, and I'm here for like I want to be here for a long time climbing rocks. I don't want to bust myself up and get hurt on something simple. Like I'm a big fan of like the stick clip. Like, oh my God, I think that's the smartest invention ever. Does it soften you up? Sure, but
You're
twisted
gonna be,
ankles really soften
yeah.
you up.
Statistically speaking, you're going to be climbing with less injuries.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best thing you can do is to try to alleviate all the factors of getting hurt, taking a fall, anything like that. Like when I started climbing, the guys who were taking me down to Indian Creek, they didn't want me lowering on their rope. They didn't want me taking on top rope. They were like, if you can't do this in 3 tries without hanging on my rope, like 3 strikes and you're out. So if I thought I was going to have a hard time, I'd bring a cam and plug it in on top rope so I didn't weight my buddy's rope and like pull all the stretch out of it because it only has 4 falls in it. They give you a little number with how many falls your rope can take. And yeah, so I was brought up like, don't weight the system unless you have to. And you get to the top and you clip in and you pull the rope and you repel, because lower and up and down like weakened your rope. And yeah, so never waiting. All jobs were yours. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like there was no mussies when I was growing up. There was like, you had to have the skill to be able to clip in and thread the rope and rappel down, or, no one lowered or anything like that. It was kind of
some staunch ethics.
Yeah, it's kind of weird the way stuff has come along. And I mean, I'm a fan of the mussy hook, but it's kind of weird the way they're everywhere now, and people can't like go indirect and rappel.
Yeah, that's the one thing too. It's like, sure, it's the easier way to go about it, but you should also have all these other skills to back up. If you show up to an anchor that's not mussies, like you should be able to handle yourself in those situations.
For sure. It's kind of strange. I mean, I like the new generation of climbers and making everything super accessible, but I think there's certain things that everyone should know how to rappel
100%.
and like be able 100%. To like thread the anchors and stuff. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had said something else in a video. You said, and this is a quote, "Cracks can change on karmatic waves and decide whether you fit or not." So talk to me about what you meant by that.
So, I mean, I don't know, you walk around in the desert long enough and you'll look up at something and you think, oh man, that thing's a perfect hand crack up there. I'm going to go up there and do it. And you get up there and the lights change and it's like a fist crack. And you're like, oh, that sucks. This is not the hand crack that I came up here to do. And, whether you had some kind of reservations about it, you're thinking, oh man, I deserve that hand crack that's up there. This is going to be awesome. And you show up there and you maybe only have 1 4 on you and a bunch of hand cams, and like, why did that change? Because I saw it the other day and it was perfect hands. I worked my ass off to get up here, and what the hell? And then other times you'll look up and see something and you'll be like, oh God, that is, the hardest thing on earth. I don't even want to go. I'm going to try it. And then you get up there and it's that perfect hand crack and you weasel right through it and get to the top and you're like, what did I do? Like, how are these cracks not doing what they say? How are they changing so often? And then you kind of like read way too much into it and you're like, well, dude, I was on one that weekend, thinking good thoughts, doing good stuff. And, every corner I turned, was like the perfect crack, doing exactly what I wanted it to. And then sometimes I'd turn corners and it was nothing but hard times and crusher stuff that almost put me out, But yeah, so some of those cracks, I do believe, in fact, if you put enough thought and energy and things, they can literally change. And yeah, I've seen some of those cracks go from being like a nightmare to like the best thing I've ever climbed, and sitting up there being amazing.
Just out of view because it looks nasty.
Right. Yeah. It's weird. Shadows play a game. And I mean, I've even heard stories from like old schoolers that like the finger cracks change ever so slightly. So you got to get up there and climb it when it's cold, because during the day, the crack will open up just a little bit with the heat and it'll make that much of a difference. And you're like, what? These cracks really do change. So yeah.
Interesting. Wouldn't I think rock expands when it's hot and it constricts when it's cold, right? Is that how it works? Yeah.
So yeah, there's stories of people leaving cams in the crack, come back in the morning, and they, they're like tight and they could barely get them out, and leaving them through the middle of the day and all the cams had slid out.
Wow.
Yeah, just not that it's much of a change, but just enough to.
Yeah.
I don't know how
That's interesting.
thermodynamics or
They've got a
anything
life of
works.
their own. They're breathing.
Yeah, and some of these cracks really they do breathe. Yeah, in the hot months down there, some of the better cracks to climb are the wider ones because they're like pumping air conditioning out because it's all the cold air that's inside from the night of the whole system of cracks during the hot part of the day. It flushes all out. So during the summertime months is best to climb some wide stuff because it's a lot cooler.
How
It's
how
like,
deep are these cracks? Like you always you stick a cam in, but you never really know. Like, do you know how far in some of these cracks go? Have you like does anybody know?
I mean, I that'd be a good test to see how far back they go. I've never a depth meter to go in.
That would be really interesting to know. Wonder if it'd be like, tens of feet, like 50 feet back. I wonder if they're that big.
I mean, some of the bigger fissures that you run into, which are just larger versions of the small ones, man, you'd be surprised they go way back in. Some of the cooler climbs that I've found over the years are the lines that are hidden behind the lines. Like you'll walk by a blank panel of wall forever, and then there'll be like a corner, and it's like a little tunnel going through, and then you walk in through that tunnel, and then end up in some weird Shangri-La of cracks that are in the back of this hallway that pop into the sun that no one knew how to get to. And yeah, there's a lot of weird little mysteries out there in the desert like that are tucked away. And some of the cooler stuff I've found hasn't been the lines that you can straight see. They're kind of like buried in the wall and what you can't see.
Yeah, out of your 665, do you have one that stands out as like your golden goose, like the one that you'd never think you'd have gotten?
There's so many out there that I love so much, and I'm like, oh, that one, this one, that one. But I think like 2 years ago on my birthday, I always go out there on my birthday. It's like August 10th, like middle of the summer, but I want to be where I love on my birthday, which just happens to be Indian Creek. So I always figure out something to do on my birthday out in the desert. And yeah, I've been eyeballing this line, and it just looked like a 150-foot, like perfect corner, but it looked wicked involved to get up to. And yeah, I ended up figuring out a way to get to the base of it, and that I was on one for there because the crack was perfect golds and blues for like 150 feet of just so crisp and so perfect.
Wow.
And yeah, I was able to on-site it because at that point it's so good, and you have like, you gauge it. You're like, well, I've only got this many of this widget, and this is how long it is, so I better just climb as hard as I can, as long as I can, and not fall off the wall, but feed
Just
them
walk a two for 30 feet at a time.
Feed enough of them in to hopefully, and that's the part about doing these FAs. You have to keep one or two on you, or figure out where you're going to end it, so you can have cams to still stay in and anchor yourself.
And yeah, put bolts in so you can actually get down.
Bring them up, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What's it called?
I don't know if I could put my finger on any one route, but that one in particular is high on my
What's
list
it called?
And it's like I'm drawing the worst blank right now, because as I'm explaining it, I'm like, dude, you can't remember the name of that route. And I'm like, oh man, it's got like such a good name, but it couldn't be that good if I can't remember it. It's like in my head, but
it's 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, if it comes to mind, let me know.
Yeah, I'll try to.
It sounds absolutely wicked.
There's the end of last season, I was able to get to what I thought would be like an untouchable, because it didn't come to the ground, but I was able to go. We were able to go up to the left of it and swing over, and it's like right in the heart of the creek, like right across from Supercrack, going up Titus Canyon, and it sits on the biggest, smoothest shield, and it's perfect, and it goes up, 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 and then goes dead right and like a heartbeat. And I call that one the heartbeat of the creek. And
That it's like this, like kind of like that.
yeah, like
Oh,
it's
sick.
perfectly splitter like a lightning bolt, and then it just
Wow.
jogs horizontally to the right.
Wow.
And yeah, that would probably be my most crowning achievement out there in regards to my favorite route. But it's involved to get to. You got to climb up a pitch and then climb up another pitch and then get over to it like via a little ledge. Definitely not in danger of becoming the most popular route, but
Yeah.
it looks really good. I was trying to, like I said, keep the anchors bright so everyone could see them. And I was like, wow, that's, crowning achievement on this heartbeat of the creek. So I got some of that gold like chain for like locking down big loads on like semi trucks. It's like really bright gold chain. And I specifically went all the way over to Cortez, which is like an hour drive away, to get this length of chain to put on the top of this route. So it would look really bright and you could see it from forever away. Something between like the brown of the hangers and the silver of the quick links to the gold chain. You couldn't see it at all.
Oh,
And
no.
yeah, I was like my crowning achievement. And I got this gold chain for it. You couldn't even see the thing.
Oh,
Kind of a
man.
rip off.
I'm sure when people get to it though, it's going to be like super cool to look at. Like, whoa,
Yeah,
what
and
the
that's
hell
the
is
thing. When I
this?
posted it on the Instagram, I was like, whoa, gold chain. I was like, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Can't
you got to
even see
get
it.
to it for the value.
Yeah, because you literally can't even see it from the ground. I was like,
Yeah.
what a ripoff. Because I thought it was going to be glowing
Uh-huh.
and looking amazing. And it apparently something with eyes and distortion of color. You can't see it at all.
Yeah. Well, shoot. Do you feel like you have weaknesses as a climber?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not much of a sport climber.
I'd say that's more preference than weakness.
Oh, yeah. I guess, when it comes to like holding on to little things, I'm not very good at that. And like thin fingers, like my fingers don't fit in any. There's a couple climbs out in the desert that I'll never be able to do.
Really? Never?
Never. Like digital readout at the
Okay.
Battle of the Bulge is like the sickest like splitter, and it's like 512 minus 511, but it's like 0.3s, and I can't get my fingers in there. Like I tried. It's like, so certain sizes I just can't do, like small continuous fingers.
Interesting.
I can't do it. My fingers just don't go in. That might as well be a 514 crack.
It's definitely super like finger size dependent, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
wicked size dependent out there. It's weird the way one thing fits someone. Like a 0.75 can be like a smaller person's perfect hand.
Yep.
And a 0.75, Kyle, that's
dude,
a shitty
it's like-
size.
Like
Dude,
two.
you know it.
Man, it's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my weakness as a climber would definitely be anything I can't fit my fingers into, anything crimpy. And yeah, anything too hard, dude. I'm not a grade chaser. I when it comes to like climbing much harder than like a soft 512, hey, I'm good.
I can resonate with that for sure. It's like there's a certain point where you just got to dedicate so much time and training and focus into like getting past that grade. It's like, whoa, what is it? What am I doing now? I'm training now. I'm not even climbing anymore.
Right. And like I climbed me a 513 off with, and I was like, whoa, dude, I made it. I've climbed 513. But again, it's very specific. Like not everybody can hang upside down from their feet for like that far. Like you have to train and specifically do that one thing to make it go. And in hindsight, I'm like, man, I don't know if 513 off with is the hardest thing on the planet. I'm thinking maybe like some 513 crimpy thing might be the hardest thing on the planet or something.
Yeah, I definitely think it depends on person to person. Because people with small hands have no problem with the crimps.
Oh, yeah. And just like, I don't know, the patience and strength to hold on to those little rails, it's just never been my thing.
What about overhangs? Do you have issues with overhangs at all?
No, I do enjoy a good overhang. I like moving through. Wait, if it's juggy,
Uh-huh.
I love a juggy overhang.
Yep.
Like the crack house is like a long hanging upside down hand crack. It's like
Yeah.
110 feet. Like I love that. That's amazing.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, like an overhanging jug haul, I'm all about it. But when it starts getting like a hard size or like little holds upside down, no, not too good at that.
Yeah. Well, nice, Devin. I want to, kind of wrap it up here with your thoughts about the future and kind of like how you see, your life progressing, and do you feel like there's like a a, a chapter ending or a chapter beginning? Do you see this, your life just kind of continuing down this trajectory that you've built? What does that look like for you?
God, I hope I can continue on the trajectory that I've built. I've put all my eggs in one basket in regards to being a climber until my old age. But I mean, I still do have skills. I mean, like I said, I laid carpet for years. I know if I ever, woke up one morning and found climbing not doing it for me, I can always pick up my tools and get back in the trades and get a house, get a car, get a life, something like that. But yeah, I'm just going to try to stay healthy and continue to have as much fun as I can. And, as far as the future of rock climbing for me, man, I just want to be able to do it and give back to my community as much as I can. Because the older you get, you can't do all the hard things you wanted to. And it's nice to be able to pass on a little bit of knowledge or something like that to the next generation, because climbing is exponentially getting popular and popular all the time. And it's neat to see people come out who had no idea and really wrap their head around it. So yeah, I'd like to be able to share my knowledge in the future. And I think that just comes with getting old and realizing that, you gotta not be the hot fucking rock climber. You gotta still be relevant in a way, but pump your brakes and be humble.
Is there anybody you feel like you're going to be passing the torch to?
God, I don't know. I'd like to say, oh, there's a bunch of up and coming first ascensionists down in Indian Creek, but I have taught as many people as I can how to hand drill, and for the longest time I was just like, oh, I'm doing this, I know how to hand drill, blah. And someone was like, hey, can you show me how to do that? And I was like, actually I can. And launched them into loving to do first ascents also, and they're a well established first ascensionist down in the creek also. And I'm sure they'll take that into the future and keep on putting up roots. And yeah, I don't know. I think anyone who's got the motivation to get out there and do cool shit, like, because I'm sure there's 1,000 other Indian Creeks out there. You just got to find that side canyon and go put up your roots. It's one of those things. It's not that hard to do. I mean, I've spent my whole life doing it. You just got to poke a hole in the rock and put a bolt in.
Have a vision. I think the biggest
have a
thing
vision.
is have a vision, have an explorative mindset.
Totally.
Do you feel like route developers don't get like enough credit for the work and the time and the money that it takes to establish routes?
I mean, to a degree, you don't get any credit for it, but it's like kind of a selfish endeavor. I mean, putting up roots and carving your name into a little thing that says your name and you get to decide and all this stuff, or like you write a guidebook that says these are all my roots, here's where they are. Like, it's very self-promoting in a way. But yeah, after all of the years of being a climber, yeah, you kind of look back and go, wow, if it wasn't for so and so, this whole area wouldn't be developed. And,
yeah, totally.
You think about what it took to build all these trails and put up all these bolts and the time. And yeah, it's definitely the Lord's work. You don't get enough a lot of first ascensionists don't get enough credit. There's a lot of us out there doing it, but you do it for the passion. You don't do it for any kind of monetary compensation. Or I've never met the pro climber who was out there and they're like, my sponsors are giving me money to put as many bolts in as I can. Like, I'd love to meet that climber. That would be a radical time. But, you know, unfortunately, it all comes out of your own pocket to a degree. I mean, once people start, you know, loving your roots and stuff like that, I've had over the past, you know, couple years, you know, people do hand over money and they're like, yo, Devin, thank you for the work you've done. And you're like, oh, Jesus, you know, thank you so much. I wish I had a list of people who just straight up giving me money out of the goodness of their heart to like put bolts in the wall. And yeah, people do appreciate your work, but it's more, I don't know. It's kind of one of those selfish things that.
Yeah, it's like a weird dichotomy where it's like selfish but also selfless at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know how much money I've spent on bolts. I recently saw Evan Wisherup had his whole little his sheet out, and I was just like holy shit! You've had like a nice car.
It was like 35 grand or something like that.
Yeah, it's something mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But Evan is more motivated than anyone I've ever met in regards to like putting up quality roots, like, or putting quality bolts up in quality roots.
Well, I mean, there's also a difference between like a 2-bolt anchor for a trad climb versus a route that takes 12 bolts plus the anchor.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, the glue ins and all that stuff, and like people don't realize the amount of equipment it takes to glue those things in. Like, cool, they're like, well, these will last forever, and you're like, oh, do the glue-ins. But if you actually like sat there and watched the process and like on the wall and everything, cool, but like those caulk guns and all that glue and it's got to live somewhere in your house, in your car, in a bucket, somewhere around all your precious climbing gear that through the years we all know it can't touch any of your soft goodies. Like, it's a dangerous game with the glue-ins, and it's all just for, you know, someone to be like, I think your root sucks. And you're like,
you bolted it too much.
Right, for sure. That's the other part of it. Like, you want all of your roots to be like the star pupil and the amazing child that goes on to college and does everything. But unfortunately, you have like a bunch of rotten kids out there that no one will ever love. And you're like, oh, someone should climb that route. And
well, yeah, but then you also got people that are just looking for things to complain about and just don't really grasp. You know, they just see a bolted climb and they're like, I would have done this better. It's like, yeah, do you really know what went into this? Do you really have respect for this area?
For sure. Like cleaning some of those cracks out, you know, you got to knock a lot of the rocks out. Like most of these climbs don't just clean themselves out and be perfect splitters. And you go through a lot of gloves and clothes and stuff, knocking them down and poking them out. But that's half the fun. Like, no one's going to give you the chinchilla year award because you're covered in dirt and like, way to go. But
yeah. Well, nice, man. Where can people support you if someone's inspired by your story here, and maybe someone's been following you for a long time, and you know, they want to, you know, support you? How can they do that?
I mean, God, I don't have like a GoFundMe or anything cool like that, you know, like one of those little PL codes, or no, I just give me a high five if you see me in the streets. That'd be the best way you could support me.
Oh yeah. Well, awesome, man. I appreciate you you being here, taking your time and making this work with the technology and everything. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, dude, love it. Thank you for your time, brother. It's awesome that you reached out and were able to get this done. I've waded through the world of podcasts, and I'm just like, oh my God, should I pop my podcast cherry? And then, you know what I'm saying? It's like weird. I'm friends with Chris Kalous and everything, and I've known him for so long as like a climber in the group and everything. And then, you know, he's like, come on to the show. You should come on to the show. And like, I see him everywhere. I'm like, oh, dude. And like, he called me a couple times recently, and like, I didn't pick up the phone. Like, he was like FaceTiming me, and I'm like, he's like, I just did an interview with Aaron. When are we going to get John? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Chris is an interesting fella, and yeah.
So, I mean, is this your podcast, Jerry? This is your first one, right?
Yeah, fucking A.
Hell yeah, man. I freaking appreciate that. Why now?
Your content online was like super dope, and I saw what you were doing and how you were filming it, and it was like different. You know what I'm saying? And what you wrote and everything, and it was very engaging. Your content really got me, and I was like, dude, this is something I can relate to. The passion that it came across very, very easy with your eyes and your ears, and and that's something in the push button world we live in, Kyle. I was like, whoa, dude, this dude's cool. And then I was like, wait a minute, dude's got a podcast. So then when you reached out, I was like, oh, this is for sure a fit, because I liked what you were doing with your gram, and then saw a couple of your podcasts, and I was like, yeah,
hell yeah,
this seems like the right time. So
hell yeah, I appreciate that, man. I really know it means a lot, and I think it's the challenge that I face in this show is like finding people that haven't spoken, right? Like finding the stories that have yet to be shared, and that takes a lot of trust and a lot of faith from someone like yourself. So I appreciate the trust you've placed in the show, and yeah, just once again, I really appreciate you being here and sharing your story.
Yeah, dude. Like I said, Kyle, I'm stoked to finally get it out there, and I'm sure it'll do good. And if not, dude, you'll get a bunch of haters and be like, that motherfucker.
No, I doubt it, man. Everyone's gonna love it. I'm super psyched about it.
People are pretty sweet. Like I said, the majority of people in the climbing industry have been super sweet to me over all the years. But it only takes like one or two fucking sour.
Oh, dude, I just block them, man. It feels so good.
Dude, it does. And the worst is like when they troll you, and then like you can see their other fucking accounts finding out what you're doing. And you're like, dude, what the hell is wrong with these people?
Oh, they're all just miserable people. And the second, like for a while there, I was like, just kind of like, oh, like I need the engagement, whatever, But then once I started blocking them, and then they no longer were commenting on my posts, and they were gone, and I forgot about them. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm such a happier person now.
Dude, yeah, and it's weird that you can let something like that bring your frequency down. You're like, dude, it's only like talking about rock climbing, and it's only rock climbing on the whole. Like, how could anyone actually get worked up about this? Because it should be pretty chill, and yeah,
just gotta have some fun.
Fully, that's the main ingredient.
That concludes today's episode, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. It really means a lot to me that you're here. If you like today's episode, please be sure to rate and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. These have honestly slowed down a little bit lately, so if you haven't gotten around to it, please consider giving the show 5 stars. Also, if you're psyched about what we're doing here at The Climbing Majority, please reach out. DM me via Instagram or email me at theclimbingmajoritypodcast@gmail.com. I want to hear from you. Stay tuned for our next episode where we sit down with adaptive ice climber Kimber Cross. Until then, keep exploring, stay safe, and as always, thanks for being a part of The Climbing Majority. I will see you all in 2 weeks.